Hey, what's up, Hope Shot family? Welcome back. We are back for our Addiction to Success series, and we got Will tonight. Is going to share his story. Hope everybody had a happy Halloween this past Sunday, and we had a much needed break from this whole live thing, and it was really great to spend time with the family and just enjoy their company and being present for the moment with them. We hope you guys are excited for tonight. So I will introduce Will real quick. And me and Will met through our recovery endeavors. We met at the recovery walk this past September. We did a recovery walk, and we've been talking ever since. And he was, we asked him if he'd come on here and share his story. And he was willing to do that for us. And we appreciate him coming on. And if you guys are jumping on, would you guys say hi? Let us know you're here. Also, if you would share this live feed, that way we can reach some people, and you never know who this might help. So I'm going to give it over to Will and let him start sharing his story. So Will, it's all you, buddy.
Hi, Justin. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here tonight. It's an absolute honor. I really love what the Hope Shot's doing, and I hope to be able to provide a little bit of hope for someone who's out there who might think that they can't get sober. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and what that means to me is that I haven't picked up a drink or a drug since February of 2006. I am not a one-chip wonder. If you subscribe to the 12-step model of recovery, I got introduced to this when I was 19 years old, and I'm grateful that thus far it has stuck since I was 21. But as the gray hairs, despite my bad camera, might show, I've maintained a level of abstinence that I'm just incredibly grateful for today that I had no interest in when I first got sober. So I'm just going to go kind of the regular way of sharing my story, and Justin, cut me off if I'm out of line, but what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And Man, I'm lucky. I got sober, like I said, at a young age, but really only was ripping and running for about, I want to say, 5 years or so. I had my first cigarette at 13. I had my first drink at 14. I thought that I was being smooth by inviting over the neighbor girls to raid the liquor cabinet while my parents were out of town, and that didn't go so well. My very first experience with drinking was not a normal person's type of drinking. I mixed light with dark liquors, with cooking Kahlua. It was just a smorgasbord of just any type of liquor I could do, all the while trying to act like I knew what I was doing for these girls. And blacked out the very first time I drank. Came to walking around my neighborhood. No one was around me. I had no idea where I was, and when I made it back to my house, no one was there. So I went to bed. Woke up the next day with the worst hangover of my life. Was dry heaving for what felt like a solid day, and then had flu symptoms for the next two. And I didn't understand what all this drinking fuss was about, man, because I basically blacked out any of the fun stuff and just experienced a whole bunch of hangover symptoms that weren't a lot of fun. But when the girls called me and said how much fun they'd had, I knew that I was going to drink again. I mean, because I'd found acceptance and acknowledgement and all this stuff that I felt had been missing in my life up until that point. Because I come from a upper middle class family that got divorced when I was 3. I have two very loving parents. They just love me in different ways. So I grew up very, please forgive the terminology, but angry white kid syndrome. I was just very entitled and upset with the world, and nothing was ever fair. When really I'd been handed every opportunity I could possibly imagine. So come by 14, I started experimenting with alcohol, and my aha moment for feeling at peace inside came when I was 15 and I discovered pot. I was hanging out with a buddy Parker of mine. We were at a park, and he was smoking and offered some to me. And at first, I acted like I was high. I had to put on a brave face, even though it wasn't doing anything for me. And by the time he and I got back to my place, it was creeper weed, and it just hit me when we walked in the door. And my dad took two looks, took a look at us, and just like, "You guys want a roast beef sandwich right now, don't you?" Like, like and I proceeded to stay high as long as I possibly could for the next couple of years. Like what happens with addictions, and mine as they progress. What got me high or got me drunk in the beginning really wasn't doing it for me. When I was either later that year or 16, I can't remember which, I dislocated my knee playing basketball, and they hooked me up to morphine. And I like to say that I chased that high right into treatment. Because even though my knee was bent sideways, I was flying high. I was feeling pretty good. Started getting in a lot of trouble. Got expelled from one school. Got sent to this. I mean, it's so funny how kids, and really us addicts and alcoholics, and I'm going to say it, person in recovery or person in active addiction. When I was a person in active addiction, I I couldn't even see how really awesome things were for me. My mom and my father went out of their way to send me on this place called Outward Bound, and I got to hike around the hills of North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, South Carolina for 3 weeks. Now, as an adult, that sounds amazing. As a teenager, I was separated from my drug dealer. I was separated from my booze. I wasn't able to work. So I was pretty miserable and pretty upset. So when I got from that, at the time I was working at a theme park called King's Dominion. They're still around today, and I started stealing. I was working in the merchandise department, and they had this uh, old style cash register system where you had to add tax to it. And so if it was cash that someone was giving to me for whatever T-shirt or memorabilia or souvenir that they wanted, I would declare a tax holiday if they didn't need a receipt, and I would void out the transaction and pocket the money. And that went on for a number of months, where me and the other folks that worked in this merchandise department at the theme park, we would pool all of our money together at the end of the night and just get wasted that entire summer. And what had happened was, this is back when things were still good in my drinking and drugging, is they promoted me. They wanted me to be the assistant manager, and that person was responsible for counting all the money at the end of the night. And I just so happened to know everybody who was stealing in the park because I was doing it too. And so I started to freak out, and I quit immediately, because that was A, not going to work for me, and B, wasn't going to be a wasn't going to be conducive to my continuing ability to get high and drunk if I ratted on or knew about all the people that were. So I quit, and kind of proceeded to wait until high school started up again. And this year was first year starting in 11th grade at a new school because I'd gotten expelled from the previous one. And just started the process all over again. Started working at a Food Lion, and then which is a grocery store in Virginia, or then a Movie Time. And I skipped so many days of school over the next 2 years. I had to go to summer school just to graduate high school because I just wasn't interested in being a part of. All I wanted to do was drink, get high, and spend time around my girlfriends as much as possible. And so by the time I was 18, I had accomplished all of my goals. They gave me a diploma, had to go to summer school to do it. I graduated high school, and I was getting high and drunk all the time. I had no interest in college because, I mean, why would I want to go away to party when I was doing all of that in my hometown? And yeah, so I by that day, because I thought I was going home to spend time with my girlfriend, and we were going to watch a movie and get high, do all this fun stuff. And when I get home, my bags are packed. And my dad was so funny. He it was like, "You're 18. We got you through high school. You know, we're done. Get out." And so for the next year and a half, really, I just couch surfed. I first went to the manager at the movie time that I was working with. She let me sleep in her living room for 3 months before I got kicked out of there. And then I moved in with the drummer of a band that I was hanging around, a group called Jefferson Plane Crash. They toured around Northern Virginia, a little garage band, and I was kind of their roadie and helped them set up and take down shows and picked up the girls that they didn't want and just really partied around them. And so I lived with the drummer until eventually I couldn't pay my way, and then I kind of just ended up homeless. So the first bit was to accept a gig. My stepfather was nice enough to help me with one of his friends get a catering gig in upstate New York. It's actually the only legal drink I have ever taken. I literally had to cross the United States border and go into Canada to do it because I took my supply up with me, which I thought was going to last. Instead, what it did was made it 2.5 days, and then I needed to, after work, jump across the border just so I didn't start to go into the DTS or have withdrawal symptoms. It's actually where I started to realize, hey, yeah, there might be something wrong here. I feel restless, irritable, and discontent if I don't have something in my system. Which was funny because the third time I came across the border in a week, they were starting to get a little weird. And hey, why are you keep doing this? And as I trashed coming across the state lining, or not state line, the border between Canada and the United States, I'm talking to the customs official, and I've been sitting there for an hour needing to pee and couldn't think of a lie for why I'd gone up to Canada this time. And so when he asked me, and I just said I went up to get a drink. He was so funny. He was like, "Oh, thanks for your honesty. Have a great day." And I went, drove off. Didn't try that again because after the third time, I just didn't want to test my luck anymore. But that's the only legal drink I've ever had, was at a bar in Montreal three times in a week. But quickly after just 8 days of being up there, I had to return home because that restless, irritable, and discontentness was too much for me to handle. So I left the job. I left all of my responsibilities up there, and I ended up with this weird resentment towards this guy who tried to help me out. Ironically, I ended up getting to make amends to him years later because he sat on the board for an RCO in Virginia. Guy named Chick Jordan, really great guy. But got to talk to him later about that whole experience. But basically, just in the middle of the night, upped and left, and got back to Virginia after driving all night. Spent some time with my buddy Eric at his place before I got thrown out of there. Then went to my girlfriend's house for 3 days before I got thrown out of there. And then I broke into my dad's boat on Lake Anna. And this was in the fall of 2004, and that was the year in Florida that all four of those hurricanes came through, two of which made it up to Virginia. So I've broken into my dad's boat, and I'm filling up my bong in the water there as a hurricane's coming through, just so that I can fall asleep, get high enough to fall asleep as water drips on my head. Took the marina about a week to realize that I was there, and then they called my father, and he bailed me out. I think most of us have a enabler somewhere in our stories. Mine was my father. He gave me $1,000 to go get an apartment, and I immediately spent it on drugs. And the second time, he didn't give me that option. He just went and got me the apartment. It's like, as it wasn't going the way that he wanted it to go. I was there about 2 months before I became suicidal. The thing was is that by this point, it wasn't fun anymore. I needed something in my system just to feel normal, just to feel okay. And and so I attempted to check out. Um, at 19 years old, I took a bunch of pills. Woke up the next day, very frustrated with the world. Tried to throw myself off a bridge when I took my brother down to Stetson University in Daytona. Drank on the frat brothers dine for a week. Thought it would be a good idea to throw myself off the Daytona Bridge. It's not. And then made it back up to Virginia. Realized that I didn't really want to hurt myself if I wasn't drinking. So I just went heavily into all these other substances, which at that point had been a steady dose of shrooms, pot, Percocets, Oxycontin had really just started to make their way onto the scene, and so I was running into a couple of those. But really, just anything that was a downer, anything that would depress my system, I was into. Tried cocaine, tried a couple other stuff. Really wasn't into the uppers, but didn't matter. It didn't. Turns out, when I don't pick up a drink or a drug, I don't want to hurt myself. It's fascinating. Um, Third time, I was with my buddy and we were watching an episode of The Sopranos, and I thought it would be a good idea to call the ex because I'm sure everyone here is aware people stop tolerating us after we've been kind of crappy for a while. Um, so I'm tying one on and thinking it's a good idea to drunk dial and not getting the reactions that I want. So I I I walked to a gas station. And this is actually cool because this is where a higher power began to enter my life. Don't get me wrong, drugs and alcohol I treated as a power greater than myself for a number of years. But where a true power greater than myself began to enter my system was on this third grandiose attempt at suicide. I like history, and I was a study of military history in particular. It's the one school or one class in school that I could always ace. Everything else came really difficult to me, but I loved history, and it's probably because it's a story, and I like stories. So there were these Vietnamese monks who burned themselves alive in protest of the Vietnam War. And I was like, that'll show Carol. That'll I'm gonna burn myself to death. She'll understand my pain then. That's the type of pathetic drunken addict and alcoholic I am. And while I'm at this gas station filling up a gas canister, totally forgetting that my car doesn't work. So I don't know how the hell I thought this was going to work. But lo and behold, on the gas station radio, it's playing Stop in the Name of Love. Just a really annoying song. And it's getting louder and louder and louder. And it ups my time frame to the point where I walk around the corner, douse myself in gasoline, put a cigarette to my lips, and it won't light. It's either um, the lighter got slick with the gas. I don't know, but it wouldn't light. And once I kind of came to, I walked my happy ass back to my apartment, doused in gasoline, and probably smelled like that for the next month. It was not a fun experience. But what that got the parents' attention was like, hey, this boy needs help. He's mentally insane. So they sent me to a psychiatrist and kind of passed me around the family for the next month, where what I like to call an extended intervention. It wasn't that I didn't, I still got drunk and high every day, but now I had babysitters. I had people watching me constantly to keep me from hurting myself. And the main load was taken by my grandmother and my grandfather. I spent about a month on their dining room floor in a sleeping bag. They didn't want me upstairs because they figured I would steal stuff, and they were right. So I spent I just get wasted every night and pass out on the dining room floor. And while I was there, I was seeing a psychiatrist, Dr. Sherman Masters in Richmond, Virginia, who I'm incredibly grateful had some understanding of addictions. After 4 times of seeing me, he had me fill out a whole bunch of questionnaires, and I used to remember all the diagnoses. But suffice to say, borderline, schizoaffective, anxiety disorder, manic depressive. Just I ran the gambit of stuff, and he said, "Well, we can talk about getting you into an insane asylum, or we can talk about putting you in treatment." I looked at him. I was like, "Why would we talk about treatment? Like it's like it was some type of foreign concept." And and he said, "Well, here's the thing. I can diagnose you with all of these things, and that'll make the insurance companies happy. But I've never once seen you sober, so I don't know if you have them or not." And I can't tell you how grateful I am to that, because there's a lot of people, myself included, who have been given these kind of titles to wear around their neck of you are this and you're that, and how difficult that can be to overcome, including being an addict and alcoholic. It's how I was raised in recovery, so it's how I refer to myself. But the new terminology is person in recovery and or person in active use. I don't know. It took me a while to get used to it. I'm kind of an older fart in recovery in that way, but I guess it's helpful to some so that they don't feel as if, hey, there goes that addict, or hey, there goes that alcoholic. For me, I say it because it reminds me of who I am. 15 years later, I still have a problem with drinking and drugging. I still have a problem with me. It's why I continue to show up for recovery. It's why I love getting the opportunity to do things like this. And when I was when I was presented with the option to start this process, I wasn't really excited about it. I really haven't met anyone who shows up to recovery on a winning streak. So it's like I was pretty rough walking in the door, and and they were kind enough to me. They kind of let me, eat 3 squares a day and have me in group sessions and be kind to me. But I was not convinced I had this at all. So I convinced the counselor. He was one of us, so he knew what I was doing. But I thought I'd pulled one over on him. I convinced the counselor to let me go home for Thanksgiving to clean out my apartment, which was really just code because I wanted to use. Um, I had a real fun, not so fun experience in that I did pick up a again while I was home, and two things happened. The first was is it took me 3 days to find a backdoor friend willing to help me get high. Most of them were like, "Dude, you just got out of treatment. We don't want to party with you." But this older friend finally said, "Yeah, if you got money, I'll help you." And when I was sitting in the back seat, like, "Hey guys, what's new?" All excited about this. They looked at me like I was the dumbest person they'd ever met. And hey, man, nothing ever changes. Like, what do you mean? What's new? And after 30 days of being slightly clear-headed, I did have a slightly different perspective on the world, even though I wasn't convinced that I was an addict and alcoholic. So I ended up getting high that night. And the very next day was Thanksgiving, which I walked into hungover and covered in mud because we went on a nature quest that night. And my mom had learned the Serenity Prayer while in treatment. She'd come to one of those family nights and had me stand up in front of the entire family and recite it with her while I was completely hungover. It's wasn't I don't know. I think it's funny today, but man, at the time I was pretty miserable. And I 2 days later I was on a plane back to Minnesota, which is where they sent me. I went to Hazelden's HCYF and then went to their halfway house fellowship club, and they kicked me out. 3 months into that experiment, I wouldn't get a job. I wouldn't wake up on time. I wouldn't go to meetings. I wouldn't get a sponsor. I just wouldn't do what they asked me to do. So they kicked me out. And it's the first time in my life that my parents, who had been divorced since I was 3, said the exact same thing to me. I called my dad first because he's the enabler, and I said, "Dad, it's not working out here. I need to come home." And he said, "Expletive, you get a sober home. You're not coming home." And he hung up on me. And then I called my mom, which was the long shot, and sure enough, she said the exact same thing. So I, ended up at this great place called Stepping Stones, Callan Crawford's Homes in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I was there for the next 10 months. And I did. I put some effort. I I developed a fellowship. I developed a home group. I started to work some steps, but really, I really was just giving lip service to this whole thing and still trying to have my way. Still really hadn't surrendered. And and sure enough, that day comes where you run into the right person. I like to joke around that every slip has a skirt over top of it, and mine's name was Amanda. And she had started picking up a couple of months before that. She'd lived at the female sober home down the block, and I was really sweet on her. So I wanted to spend time with her. And with a little over a year of sobriety, I thought, or excuse me, abstinence. Sobriety is a whole different type of thing, but year of abstinence, complete dry. I thought it'd be a good idea to go spend a weekend with her up around Duluth. And anyway, no defense against the first use. On the way up there, despite praying in the morning, talking to my sponsor, all this. Now, keep in mind, you can do all the right things and still not do all the right things in recovery. I prayed that morning. I talked to my sponsor. Prayer said don't go. Sponsor said don't go. I still went. So, there is an element of responsibility that we have to take with the mistakes that we make. But on the way up there, she asked if I had a problem, if she stopped and picked up anything. And in my mind, the only thing that mattered to me was, hey, man, so long as you share. Without it, I mean, just immediate. There wasn't any fight in me. There wasn't any interest in having a fight in me. I knew what I was going to do before I did. And I discovered at that point that it doesn't matter how much time a person has, that I will always be an addict and alcoholic and have a problem with substances. So all of the negative emotions immediately came back. It felt like I was waking up from a weird dream, and they were letting that addict, alcoholic side of me out of a cage. And sometimes, just how that whole experience made me feel is why I stay sober and abstinent today. I never want to have to go through being exposed to something that makes me feel content inside myself, and then the opposite of that, which is complete chaos and uncomfortability inside myself. So I came back. I turned the sponsor, who was name only, into an actual sponsor by tucking my tail between my legs and going and telling him what was going on. I talked to my home group and my fellowship, and I actually started trying to do this thing, and that meant being in pain. The first 5 months of recovery were me not being able to complete a simple first step assignment. My sponsor asked me to write down all the things that I'm powerless over and make my life unmanageable on a daily basis, to really put some thought into it and do it as a journal entry for 7 days straight. So I would do one day, get frustrated, put it down, wouldn't talk, address it for a couple of weeks, do 2 days in a row, get frustrated, put it down. It all kind of culminated with about 5 months later, I was with my father. We were in Virginia Beach on vacation, and he was going to go hang out with his high school friends, and they were going to be drinking and drugging. And he was like, you know what? You can't come with. So here's some money. I will see you tomorrow. And I called my sponsor and I said, I'm unsupervised. I have money. I think I'm going to drink. And he goes, you haven't followed any of my suggestions, so you probably are. And he hung up on me. And so when I returned to Minnesota, I finally had that assignment done. And I'm grateful for that, because as painful as it was to look at all the things that I'm powerless over and how my life is unmanageable when I try to control them, without that foundation, I don't think I'd be able to maintain abstinence and sobriety today. And the best part of it is that if that was all that I got out of it, I just would have remained miserable. But because there's these other 11 steps that I've gotten the opportunity to incorporate into my life through failure, through making mistakes, but through continually trying to do better at them, I've had an opportunity to have a really amazing life. Because of recovery, I moved from what I like to call the Siberia of America in 2008 to the great state of Florida, where it is sunny and beautiful and summer year round. In 2010, I went back to college and graduated in 2012 with a human services degree and a concentration in addictions. In 2011, I opened up my first business, Tampa Bay Sober Living, which became the first FAR accredited sober living program on the west coast of Florida. I sat on the FAR board from 2014 to 2018. I currently own and operate Associate Recovery Communities, which is the combination of Tampa Bay Sober Living and TN24, which is a program in Pasco. And I have an amazing group of people that I get the opportunity to work with, who we created a recovery community organization that serves Pinellas and parts of Pasco County with free recovery coaching and Narcan distribution. I also sit on a number of boards there, and all of those things don't really matter, I guess, if that makes any sense. Like whatever anyone does in their recovery is it stops being any of their business, in my opinion, once they get sober. We all get called to what we're called to do, whether that's welding, teaching, becoming a service or a cliche person like myself in recovery. There's all sorts of ways in which we can, contribute to the world around us. There are not a lot of good or bad ones. There's all just how we behave in our regular life. Are we at peace? Are we contributing to the world around us? Are people feeling content and good with their interactions with us? Those are kind of the bellwethers of how good my recovery is. Is someone actually enjoying that process, enjoying talking to me? So today, I am actually in Virginia on this podcast. I've been home for the last week because my father is ailing. He has ALS and dementia, and recently fell and has 3 broken ribs. So I've gotten the opportunity to sit with him and take care of him and help him as best I can, knowing that I'm powerless and unmanageable to stop any of what he's going through. All I can do is be there for him. And if I was drinking and drugging, I would not be welcome here, and I would not be able to help in this process. So to me, that's what recovery has given to me. It has not been any of the stuff. Don't get me wrong, that's been I'm very grateful for the stuff. But more so the connection with family, connection with friends, the ability to be at peace and content with myself. All of that is really what I'm so grateful to be able to wake up on a daily basis and be what I love, as opposed to constantly seeking something to make me okay. So I hope that was long enough, my friend.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did good, man. That was right on point, man. And I love that you could be what you love. I love how you said that. And one other good thing you said was like, what do we put out into the world? Yeah, we got clean, we got sober, and now what are we putting out into the world? And that's the most important part. And it's funny because I was just talking to somebody about that. It's like, what are you doing now for your community, for the world around you, for all of it? You know what I mean? And I think that's very important. And you're doing just that. Is you're helping out the world around you. You're putting it out there, not just, good, you got clean and sober. Now what? Now what are you doing to, it's almost like it's an immense to society. You know what I mean? It literally is. So
well, and we took so much from it. So that the opportunity for us to give back, I'm not only honored to do so, but it truly does feel like a duty, a privilege to be a part of anything that helps society. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Just thank you for what you do. I mean, what you're providing is a platform for stigma reduction that I am so excited to be a part of. And to, thank you for allowing me to be here and to share my story, because if anything that I say can help somebody stay sober and or get sober, that's the goal, man. So, dude, thank you for making this happen, Justin.
Of course. Well, thank you, Will, for the willingness to come on here and share your story. And it's people like you that paved the way for people like me, to bring a new entity into this whole, and so we can break down the stigma, so we can bridge the gap between, the people that don't understand, the people that do understand. That's pretty much what it boils down to, is the not understanding one another. And that's where our whole world's like that right now, not understanding what you're going through, not understanding what addiction's about, not understanding. And it's okay for them to understand, but how do we get them to understand,
Yeah.
And that's like people like you,
we do that by doing, we do that by being. So when we give them an example, they can rise to that challenge. But I have spent a lot of time, and I don't want you to be frustrated with what I've been frustrated with, my friend, trying to get other people to understand. Unfortunately, sometimes it's enough just to understand that they don't, and it's okay. We're going to do what we need to do anyway, because we are called upon to help others. So, man, you are doing the deal. You are helping others, and they will respond. They already are. They already are.
Exactly. It is okay for them not to understand. And, and that's what makes the world so great. Sometimes it is the lack of understanding and because I could be okay with you not understanding.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate you being on here. I got a few, comments on here just from people. Can you see the comments, man?
I can see the most recent ones. I can't see any of the older ones.
Yeah, so I'll put them up. She's like Missy Thang, which she's a longtime listener, watcher, whatever you want to call it, on our little podcast. And she says, "I'm enjoying listening and watching. You're amazing. You're amazing. Your story is inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing." You got Tiffany, which is another one. She's my friend. She says, "Thank you so much for sharing your story." We got David. That was an amazing story, truly inspiring. Katie Grant, as she says, truly humble answer. And then Lisa on Hope Shot Fam. Connection is the truest gift recovery has given me to myself, family, friends, and my higher power. Scott Loveland says, Justin, you changed lives. Thank you, brother. And congratulations to Scott. It says Loveland, but that's my friend. He's got probably 50 days by now. And he's been watching us and seeing what we're doing, and he's got inspiration to want to change as well. So congrats to you.
That's awesome. Congratulations, Scott.
Yes. Missy Thang says, yes, keep paving the way. And then Lisa says, thanks so much, Will. And, I think it's awesome you're in Virginia, man. Taking care of your father, that's another amends right there, buddy. It's like, that's what we get to do these days. We get to show up in our people's lives that need us the most at their time, when they need us the most. You know what I mean? So, and that's pretty awesome, man. And I haven't dealt with the whole, but dementia I've seen and I've witnessed, and that's a whole nother beast right there. So kudos to you.
Well, and really the kudos is to my stepmother and my brother, who are actively participating in this process. Like I've gotten the night shift a lot of the times to be able to sit with him and kind of be there for him. Like the ability to support family as they're going through it is the real thing. Father, when we're dealing with something like dementia, it's a little bit like talking with somebody. So it's okay. How can we make you most comfortable, and how can we support the people around us who are not doing so well? So it's just an honor to get to be here for it and to share that with you guys. That because of recovery, I'm actually welcome here. Holy crap!
It's true. It is true. Yeah, it's when people, they stop wanting you around after they're just tired of your shit, And then when you get to this side, and then people accept you back in, and that's one thing is like the acceptance part and being, being wanted, but you got to be wanted. You got to be, you got to want to be a person, because nobody wants to see that shit no more, man. And my whole family was like that towards me. So, well, I think that's it for tonight, Will. I appreciate you coming on here, man. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And we're going to be doing big things here in the near future. And that's about it for tonight. And thank you guys, all you guys, for being here and hearing Will's story. We truly appreciate you guys, because it would be just me and him talking to each other if you guys were here. And I hope somebody got something out of this as well. And this Sunday, we will be back for our Sunday night topics, which we pick the topic during the week. And we're going to have usually we try to have a guest that comes on. They're going to pick the topic and then we share on it, which Sundays are just a goodie for me, man. It really helps me to set the tone for the week. Again, Will, thank you again. And we'll see you guys Sunday at 8 p.m. right here on the Hope Shot. All right, Will. Good night. Love you guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Justin.
You're welcome, man. See ya.